everyone, I am the Weather Dude, and today we're going to be taking a look at the multiple tropical disturbances. In addition to Ophelia that we already had going up the East Coast, additional tropical disturbances are already starting to form across the Atlantic Basin, and we're going to take a look at all those today and what impacts they could pose to land sometime in the future. And of course, be sure to subscribe and like the video so you do not miss out on any future content, and be sure also to stick around to the end of the video where I will give my official forecast for these tropical disturbances. All right, so we're going to start it with Tropical Storm Felipe, which is currently out in the Atlantic in the MDR region, and it's going to be moving basically towards the west and then making some kind of curve to the north. Now you might be thinking, well, if it's curving to the north, then it's not going to affect land, right? Well, it does have Bermuda in its sights. Of course, we're going to take a look at the track here in just a second, but if you kind of look at the tropical storm force wind probabilities, you can see that does extend towards Bermuda, not quite over Bermuda yet. But the track will be sort of headed in that direction. So you can kind of see it here. If we look at the maps for the National Hurricane Center, the official track here, kind of moving west, maybe west-northwest, and making eventual northwest turn, strengthening along the way, right? So it's still 50-mile-an-hour winds right now. It could hold that strength, but eventually once it turns north, 60, 65, 70, and he could even strengthen faster than this if, conditions prove more favorable. All right, but you can see, again, Bermuda not too far off there to the northwest of the region here. So you kind of see Bermuda's in here, all right, and the storm is headed towards that. So at the very least, we could see some, strong waves, of course, some high waves from this, some rough surf from this, even if it doesn't go over Bermuda necessarily, but it's certainly a storm to keep our eyes on. So you can see 45 knots is the maximum wind, 1,000 millibars of minimum central pressure. We take a look at it on the satellite. You can see a lot of convection flaring up near its center. I wouldn't say the convection is wrapping around the center yet, but there's some decent outflow with it. And again, like I noted earlier, that convection is certainly flaring up near the center. It just has to get organized enough to kind of wrap around that center. So you can see where the low pressure center is. All right, 42 degrees west and about 16.5 degrees north. That's kind of like your coordinates there for that system. And you can see how this could all lead to an active season, because we're getting all these storms, right, that are already starting to form. And Felipe is just one of them that I'm going to be talking about in this video. And you can see the model track guidance, right, has us pretty much taking it to the west-northwest, kind of in this, again, general zone, and that kind of brings it towards Bermuda, right? If you were to extend these models outward, you can kind of see it brings it up in that direction. Some have a recurve out to sea a lot sooner, which would, of course, be great because it would affect nobody. Some do have it, kind of taking a little bit more of a westerly track. And of course, that would put it towards Bermuda. But Felipe doesn't look like it's going to affect the U.S. either way, like the U.S. mainland. So that should be, that's certainly a good thing, but that should be the forecast right now. And then, of course, taking it north of, thank goodness, the Puerto Rico and the Lesser Antilles as well. We take a look at some of the GEFS model tracks. Yes, some outliers do bring it further south, but the general consensus is that it will recurve to the north and even go, again, northeast like those other models were showing, so maybe even missing Bermuda entirely. Bermuda, though, definitely keep an eye on this one. All right, so that was the GEFS. If we look at the GEPS, kind of the same thing. You do kind of notice, though, and I like that these models hint at that, kind of what the National Hurricane Center was, where you see like a lot of congestion and the dots right there. That means it's going to be slowing down a lot, all right? Because if you look, notice how this is 24 hours out, 24, another 24, right? And then we go another 48, but then we go from, this is 4 days out, and then this is 7 days out. So the low really slows down. I mean, it basically moves essentially from here to here in like 3 days. So yeah, that's gonna really slow down. So when sometimes when storms do this, it kind of waits for the next thing to pick them up, like whether it be a trough or a building Bermuda high to steer them in the other direction. So if it just sits around, that just adds to the uncertainty of what could possibly happen here. So definitely do have to keep an eye on that. There is that big slowdown expected. You can see it on the National Hurricane Center map as well, right? Here's 2 p.m. on the 27th, right? Here's 2 p.m. on the 28th, and then 2 p.m. on the 29th. Like, we're moving in 24-hour increments at this point, and the dots get closer and closer together there, as you can see. So now we're going to take a look at the model intensity guidance. And you can kind of see here, if we just zoom in a little bit, you can see, again, more of a gradual strengthening. You can see from where it is now, 45 knots, eventual strengthening towards Category 1. Some models have it eclipsing that status. If it were to happen, it would probably take a week. Of course, the HWFI, they're a little bit of an outlier, taking up to a major hurricane, in fact, in just like 5 days. So I highly doubt that. But these models do seem to have it nailed here. Gradual strengthening over the next week. Maybe it gets up to a Category 1 hurricane a week from now or somewhere near that status. Okay, so that is the latest on Felipe. And of course, or Felipe, I don't know if he's Felipe, everyone says it differently. We're going to take a look at the models, of course, later on in the video. But our next disturbance I do want to focus on is 91L. All right, so this is an invest that form that is also out in the MDR, right? So Felipe is kind of like around here, and then we got 91L kind of behind that, right? And you can see this is also supposed to move west northwestward. Now, initially, this also had a more southern track, kind of like Felipe first did, all right? But now they kind of angled it to the north. You can kind of see it like that. So that would, of course, also be good news because it would probably avoid the Caribbean and the United States. All right, so we take, obviously there's no National Hurricane Center track out for this one because it's not a potential tropical cyclone, or it's not a tropical depression or a storm, so it's just an invest. But it still does get monitored here on Tropical Tidbits, and of course on the models start picking up on it as well. So that's certainly a good thing. You can see 20 knots is the wind speed right now. It's about 25 miles an hour with pressure of about 1,010 millibars. So obviously higher pressure, weaker winds than what we have with Felipe right now. So here's a low location here, sitting pretty far south actually, like 8.5 degrees north and then like 27.5 degrees west. So you can see it is sitting pretty far south, but it will eventually be making that northward trek, as you can kind of see here. Not necessarily moving due west, but kind of getting west-northwest and eventually more of a northwest track. Right, and you can see here on the GEFS models, you can kind of see that same thing, that recurve to the north eventually. And of course, that black line is the average, the median track and the median strength. So you can kind of see the pressure going down and then really going down once we head out about a week or so, a little over a week actually. So of course, a lot of these storms do tend to get stronger, right, as they move into the deeper waters up north in the Atlantic. All right, so we'll definitely have to see what happens with this. But again, mainland U.S. threats or Caribbean threats seem to be very low from this one right now. All right, so you can kind of see again that track to the west-northwest and then northwest and then eventually north. But there are certainly a lot of disturbances, and what if I were to tell you that wasn't even the last one, right? There's one we're less focused on because the development chance is very low. Although we do have to watch the Gulf this time of year, but there is a lot of upper level winds, a lot of wind shear, kind of keeping this thing from developing. So this is a new one for the National Hurricane Center, 10% in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. We'll see what happens with this as it moves slowly around near where the Gulf Stream is. But that is our third disturbance. But this one, again, could affect parts of the Yucatan. It kind of is right now. Maybe some shower and thunderstorm activity, but certainly nothing tropical at the moment. But we'll definitely keep you posted on that one. Now, if we look at the intensity guidance for this one, it looks to strengthen a little bit quicker maybe than Felipe did. So you can kind of see getting into high-end tropical storm status within like the next few days or so. And again, maybe closing in on Category 1 hurricane strength. All right, if we take a look at the satellite imagery for this storm, we can zoom out a little bit. You can really see not much is there, right? It's pretty much just a bunch of loose shower and thunderstorm activity, nothing really much to speak of there. If we take a look here at the GFS model, all right, you can kind of see here, we're going to take a look at the 18Z model run. All right, so here we go. We have the GFS model, and you can kind of see there we have Felipe, which is sitting right here, and we have 91L kind of sitting behind that. So these are the two systems, the two main systems that we're going to be watching here. And you can see them kind of following each other here. You can kind of see Felipe moving up to the northeast here, and then we have 91L trailing behind that. But, oh, what is that to the west you might see, right? That's another little low that just spins up there. So you're going to see a lot of these spin ups and, ooh, maybe even something over the Bahamas. So, yes, there are many more disturbances to watch. And actually, the GFS and the Canadian specifically, as I'll show you, have been a little bit consistent lately. And again, this could very well change in the next model run. But they kind of spin something up again near the East Coast. So that's something we're definitely going to need to keep our eyes on. And that was kind of the fourth thing I did want to mention for this video. So that's why I said several disturbances to watch. And then look, even another one comes up through Cuba and then kind of like going up the East Coast. So there is just so much, okay, that we don't even know. Now, yes, this is like 2 weeks out, so that's why I want to take it with a grain of salt here. But there are still so many things to watch as we head into October here. You can kind of see on the European model, right? You can kind of see Felipe right there. Now, interestingly enough, they actually keep it south. Interestingly enough, I know I was kind of weirded out by that too. So that's Felipe right there. That's 91L behind it. They do keep it pretty far south, even though they do have Felipe, thankfully, weakening before it does any other damage. But there's that other kind of spin up low that the GFS was showing around the same time right there. And again, there you go. I have 91L, that other invest there that's kind of sitting behind. And then kind of eventually there's a little turn to the north, but the model doesn't go out any further than about 10 days. I don't know why all these hours in between are missing, but this is as far as the European model goes. And again, nothing to quite say for sure, but you can also see maybe even a little something spinning up there off the coast of Florida. So a lot to watch there, a lot to keep you guys updated on. And if we look at the Canadian model finally, you can kind of see 91L actually does something pretty rare. It kind of catches up to Felipe. So here's Felipe right here. I keep changing between two ways to say it. But you can kind of see 91L's next to that. So the energy kind of gets wrapped up in it, which I find very weird. Not sure if that's cool, if that's quite, it kind of just fizzles into, kind of just gets absorbed, if you will, by Felipe and then moves off to the northeast. But oh, look what's over here, right? About 10 days out. So, and then we have another then we have another one, right? A very teeny tiny little area of low pressure that kind of strengthens and moves near Puerto Rico. So I probably named at least 6 or 7 different disturbances in this video. For now, we just need to focus on the two provided by the National Hurricane Center. So I'll go back to the home page real quick. We just need to focus here on the three, excuse me, provided by the National Hurricane Center. We got Felipe, we have this disturbance here, 91L, and the other disturbance in the southeastern Gulf of Mexico. All right, here we go. So just to kind of finish off the video here, I'm just going to give like my official, like obviously I do go through a lot of videos kind of showing different models and what, could possibly happen. So I'm going to give my official forecast as to what is happening up to date. Obviously this will be updated, but kind of like my official, forecast, if you will, what can happen with these systems. So we're going to start off here in the spirit of drawing a tropical storm. I'm going to change this to red. So we kind of have Felipe kind of sitting right here. I'm going to draw my best tropical storm logo I can. I do believe that as of right now, it's going to make a west-northwest path and it kind of recurve off towards the north near Bermuda. All right, because there's been a lot of guidance suggesting it can get near Bermuda. A lot of guidance has suggested going out to sea. And obviously, there's a lot of upper-level steering patterns that are at play here. The Bermuda High, what trough comes through, through the east. Right? All these things are going to steer Felipe in the future. So as of right now, I do believe it'll make that northward turn somewhere near Bermuda, at least enough to give send out some stronger waves in that direction. All right, so that is what I do believe will happen with Felipe. I'm going to draw a little low pressure system for 91L. I do believe that 91L has a chance to stay further south, and I think that's because, especially if you look at it right now, as I showed you, like the latitude, it was only at about 8.5 degrees north. So to find a storm below the 10-degree north, latitude line is, I wouldn't say rare, but it doesn't happen very often. So it being that far south, I think could keep it a little bit further south for longer. So it has a little bit of a higher chance to stay close to the Caribbean islands. But I do also believe that it will make a northward turn at some point and heading towards Bermuda, but probably not a direct strike as of yet. And finally, that disturbance that's sitting in the Gulf of Mexico, little low pressure center here. I do believe that's just going to keep moving slowly to the west. Maybe make a northward turn as some showers and thunderstorms, maybe head towards the Gulf Coast. But honestly, the upper level winds are very strong and could actually just tear the system up before then. But, if you live, it could certainly like throw some Gulf moisture, right? It could throw some moisture up towards Florida and then parts of the southeast coast, right? Kind of feeling its influence. But most of the rain from this we felt like around the western tip of Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula. So that is my forecast and my view of what could happen here with these disturbances. But of course, expect that to be updated. So thank you guys very much for watching. I am the Weather Dude signing off. Till next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.